the road, right off Rankin Road on Terrell Street. Moved from there, grew up in Cumberland Court, so I am south side, east side, pretty much raised. Moved over to the west side, did some time over there school-wise. And Greensboro is definitely home to me. And this is very important to me because I wasn't always an individual that actually cared about elections or any of this. Like, all of this honestly grew on me as I became an adult, as I became married, as I became a father. So with that responsibility, that puts me here in this position to moderate such an event. Appreciate everybody who listens to 102 Jams. Maybe you may know me for that line of work. But we're just here tonight to just get introduced to these individuals who want our vote. They desire our vote. A lot of times we say that we don't see these people until they want our vote. So what I've been preaching on my platforms is let's hold these people accountable. Let's come out here tonight, let's tell them what it is that we want to see in our communities. A lot of times we talk about the inequity from one side of the city to the other side of the city. Let's address that tonight. We talk about the gun violence in the city. Let's address that tonight. We talk about businesses being shut down. Let's address that tonight. So with that being said, again, I'll give each individual candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves. We do have a timer right here in front of you all. You can see it right there. And from there, I will start with the holder of the throne, the mayor of Greensboro, North Carolina. Put your hands together one time for Mayor Vaughan, ladies and gentlemen.
Just want to make sure this is on. Can you hear me? All right. Well, I'm going to declare I am the change. Lynch was up here and he was talking about what it takes. You know, we have had a lot of stresses over the last couple of years, and we have come through it better. When we talk about change, we talk about bringing high-quality jobs to the city of Greensboro. We have had the best job announcements that this city has seen in decades. Not only are they local announcements, but they are global announcements. You know, we know that we want our people to get these jobs, and I have been working on a workforce development plan to make sure as these jobs come in that it's going to be our residents in our city and our county that get to fill them, that make better wages. To do that, we have to look at transportation. I've been working with a transportation company to look about how we can revamp our routes to make it easier to get from point A to point B. When the city stepped up to help the school system with the bus routes, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't ridden a bus. But when we talked about putting kids on buses, I thought, you know, I need to get on the bus and see how easy it is. And I started from scratch. I went on the city's website, downloaded my card, looked at how to get places, and I have been using the bus system. I know how difficult it is, and certainly I'm going to pledge to move forward and make it even better. You know, down the street today is a performance of Hamilton that has sold out. We still have 6 shows. Well, I worked on bringing the Performing Arts Center to the city of Greensboro. Why is that important? Because it is one of the biggest local economic generators that we have. Do you know that 2,000 students filled the audience one day to hear a speaker? The night before, there were 90 students from Guilford County Schools watching Lion King. Thank you.
We're going to keep it as tight to the time as possible. But thank you, Mayor Nancy Vaughan. We're definitely going to be back to revisit that about employment in 1 second. Up next, Mark Cummings. Put your hands together one time for Mark Cummings.
First, let me thank the Guilford County Black Lawyers Association, the Greensboro Jaycees, and
can you hear me better now?
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
I got you 20 seconds. Don't worry about it. I got you 20 seconds.
First, let me thank the Guilford County Black Lawyers Association, and the Greensboro Jaycees and the International Civil Rights Museum for holding this. Having held leadership roles in both the Guilford County Black Lawyers Association as its president and as the legal counsel for the Greensboro Jaycees, I kind of feel at home in this particular environment. My name is Mark Cummings, and I'm asking for your vote for mayor. Not to tell you that change is coming, but to show you that change is coming. Having been born in Elon, but moved here when I was 1. I grew up here in Greensboro. I went to Lincoln, then to Dudley, graduated from Dudley. I have lived on both the east side and the west side. I grew up off of Phillips Avenue and English Street. Now, staying out in the western part of the city, I know that there is a disparity between east and west. And that is the first thing that if a candidate is not going to tell you they're going to change, they do not deserve your vote. I am going to make sure that we stay equal in this great city. The One Greensboro initiative says together we are stronger. Together we can tackle all the problems that we are facing. I have held many different offices here. I've been a judge. I've owned a business as a attorney and the father of 2 wonderful twins, Addison and Evie, who are at home watching this tonight. I have skin in the game like you, and that's why I am running for mayor. Not just because I want to make sure that my kids are safe, but I want to make sure that your kids are safe. I want to make sure that your mother is safe, your father is safe. I want to make sure that Greensboro has opportunities for everybody. Come join this campaign. This is the people's campaign. I look forward to tonight's debate.
Put your hands together and talk to more Cummings. And again, Justin Outling is candidate as well. Please do not hold this arguments against him. We had had a little bit of a miscalculation with the time, so he had double booked another event, and he's going to be over here as soon as his schedule will permit for him to do so. But with that being said, we're going to keep it moving. It looks like Robert, but it ain't. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Eric Robert. Eric Robert.
Good evening. My name is Eric Robert. I was born in France, but I've been in Greensboro since 1986. And I'm not here to ask you for your vote. I'm just here to actually, I hope that you heard the first part, but the important part is that I'm not here, to pander and to try to ask you for your vote. I'm here to tell you how I feel, and then hopefully get you a little bit more informed so you can make your own decision. I think that there is change and then there is change. I think it's safe to say that after 23 years, one could say that one of us is actually very much for change, but I would contend that it's for change for the worse. I think the race relations are at its worst. I think that, we've blurred the ethical and legal lines. I think, we've seen contempt for public records. We've seen contempt for free speech. But there's 2 of your amendments, and I'm concerned that maybe, the other 25 may be in jeopardy. So I never really wanted to be here. I never really wanted to be mayor. I've never had political aspiration. I'm obviously not as eloquent as my opponents, but and meanwhile, my intentions are good. I'm one of you guys, and the only platform I would really have is giving back the government to all of you, because I have no desire, to be the mayor or to be the guy on top of the food chain. I really think that it's important to give the government back to the people, to have a participative democracy, and I think it's really, most of all, it's really important to be transparent about everything that your government is doing on your behalf. Thank you.
Now, before I go to my first question that I have here, I'm just very transparent and vulnerable, and I go after energy, and it felt like some of the things you were saying, Mr. Robert, were about the current situation that we have now as mayor. Is there anything that you, Mayor Brown, would like to say as a rebuttal to anything that was said there, or would you like to just proceed?
I think we can proceed, because
Okay.
I think you'll see the difference in our answers.
Okay, so I know. I would like to start, Mark Cummings. If you were granted the next mayor of Greensboro, North Carolina, my question to you is, I'm sorry. I thought it was security. I didn't know who it was. I thought security was coming out. I was about to put my mask on. I thought security. You have not missed much, Mr. Outling. Right now, we're just allowing you 2 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience. Again, like I told the candidates beside you, at the end of this, we'll give another 2 minutes just to give your last words. but this is just a first impression to many people who may be seeing you for the very first time. Just introduce yourself to them. You have 2 minutes. There's a clock right there, and we're being very respectful of the time tonight.
Well, good evening, everyone. My deepest apologies on being here a little tardy. I am blessed to have a number of supporters in our community, wonderful volunteers. Months ago, we committed to doing a meet and greet this same evening. With the start time, it was still important to follow through on commitments and do what we agreed to do, so I apologize for being late. But thank you for this opportunity. My name is Justin Outling. I'm a member of Greensboro City Council, a candidate for mayor, and I will share with you foundationally, I deeply, deeply love Greensboro. It's who I am in every significant way. My wife, Cora, and I met as freshmen. We were teenagers, in fact, at UNC Greensboro. Our kids, Clark and Clara, attend elementary school at Jones Elementary in the Warnersville neighborhood. In addition to being a council member, I work in one of the best law firms in the state of North Carolina called Brooks Pierce, and I've had the privilege of serving you, or at least many of you, as District 3 council member for the past 5+ years. And as someone who deeply loves Greensboro, I know that we should be the envy of every city in North Carolina. We have a high quality of life, low cost of living, some of the best colleges and universities in the state. But there's a gap between our potential and our reality, and it's been getting wider and wider year after year. And being someone on the city council, I know that not every council member's position is the same, and it's really the mayor who's the quarterback of the city council and by extension the city. It's just like in football. You need more than just a good quarterback to be successful. You need an offensive line, you need wide receivers, a halfback. But if you don't have a really effective mayor that knows how to bring people together, actually set things on the agenda, set it for a vote, and use the bully pulpit, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to reach your potential. So I look forward to discussing with you my plans, my visions, as well as the things I've done on the city council to make our community better. Thank you.
I like it. And just to let you know that your tardiness was not a reflection of you. We had made an error with our timing, but thank you very much for making it over here in haste. With that being said, Mark Cummings, first question goes to you. And then after you, we'll go right in order. If you are elected mayor, what would you say is the most important challenge facing Greensboro today, and how do you plan to address it?
Well, first, in order to have economic opportunity, we've got to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe. And right now, our neighborhoods are not safe. My first priority as your mayor would be to get this crime problem under control. And I have the credibility to be able to do it. By going into the neighborhoods and letting them know, you know I fought as a social justice advocate. You know that my heart is in the right place to protect all of the citizens. And this is how we're going to do this together. You can't have a one-size-fits-all approach, nor can you have a situation where the only time you're in the neighborhoods is responding to the problem. Mayor Vaughan and Mr. Outling have had together 16 years to get something right. Aren't you tired of hearing Greensboro has so much potential? I laugh every time I hear them say Greensboro has so much potential, as if they haven't been in the position for the last 8 years to bring that potential to a reality. When I start work on day one, we are going into the neighborhoods to make them safe for Big Mama who wants to be able to sit out on her porch, or for little Johnny who is walking down the street to school or to the park to play basketball. Why is it so many young kids are being gunned down today? Where is the response to that? The day after a young man was killed on Randleman Road, I was in Smith Homes, knocking on doors, telling them that help is on the way. We have abandoned these wonderful individuals. As your mayor, this is what I promise you. You will be my main concern. You will be who I go to work every day to protect. Your agenda will be my agenda and the city's agenda. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me start. I would like to say this. You have to be exposed to the acoustics in here aren't the best. So, like the people in the back, they can't hear. But from the people in the back, I would like to say there are tons of seats up here. So if hearing is something that you're really trying to do and you really want to make that happen, you can scooch right on up here to this area. Okay, just a little scooch, and just raise your hand if it's a free seat beside you. Just raise your hand, look at all the hands raised. See, we'll let you know. How that works.
Candidates, if you don't mind pulling those a little closer to
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
Because it picks up a lot of ambience out of too.
Now, I want to go to Mayor Nancy Vaughan and ask her the same question, but I really would like to follow with you for 1 second, Mark, because you say something that is very important. You said we want to go in here and make it so Big Mama can sit on the porch and the little homies can run through the streets. How? How are you going to make it safe? Like, when you say I'm going to go into the neighborhood, what are you going to do?
Thank you. Unlike those, I actually got a plan for that.
I like to hear it.
The first thing is, let's utilize the city activists in these neighborhoods who have been telling us what the problems are for years. They know what is going on in their cities, in their neighborhoods, and they have been asking for help. Well, help is on the way. This is how. The first thing we're going to do is, let's use some of those homes that have been identified to be torn down by the city, renovate them and turn them into community safe zones where the city activists and law enforcement can work together to build partnerships to protect the cities and have less response times to come when there has been a problem. Let's stop being reactive. Let's be proactive. I believe if we build a relationship between the wonderful community activists here and law enforcement, that will help us go into these neighborhoods and get the crime elements out of there.
All right, appreciate that. Again,
Oh, you can clap. Don't be afraid to
You can
clap.
definitely clap. I don't want to suffocate the clap. If you agree, clap on, stand up. Take your shirt off, twist around your head like a helicopter. Whatever you gotta do to enjoy yourself. This is a very comfortable environment. I want everybody to be comfortable. I know it's a long. Now I'm hearing the shots being thrown. I know you're like, but listen, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. Now, again, the 2 minutes up top, but then when I ask her, I'm gonna follow up. Please try to keep that to 30. I would like to ask you, before you give your 2 minutes, Mayor Nancy Vaughan, the things you were saying, renovating the houses, things of that nature, is that even realistic?
It is realistic, and we do have a plan for renovating some houses that are on the condemnation and minimum housing standards, but it has to be a comprehensive solution when it comes to affordable housing, and I think we can go into further depth.
We will go back to that. I would like to give you 2 minutes to let me know. Is somebody have them? We'll do that. So, what is the most important challenge facing Greensboro right now? And if we're elected, what will you do to address it?
So we have to address the root causes of violence and what is happening in our community, number one. And that is a comprehensive approach because it will be looking at housing, policing, community, education, healthcare. Those are all things that are important to every single person in this room. My extended family lives here, my children, my grandchildren. You can see their pictures behind me. Last night, I walked through a neighborhood with mothers standing against gun violence, other community activists, and the police department. And we spoke to the people who have lost their children. We went door to door in that neighborhood to build relationships. Building relationships and trust really is number one when it comes to policing. I know that we need to give the police the tools that they need. We've been talking about defund the police. We need to make sure that police are funded to the appropriate levels. We need more people on the streets creating relationships. But we also need to have better housing. And one of the women that I spoke with, I went to her house today, and it is a mess. She's got water coming in through the ceiling. We can take care of that through minimum housing. But the problem is getting her into another place. And as I was talking to her, she was afraid for me to call code enforcement because she wouldn't have a place to go. So I have been working on affordable housing. I got the first bond passed, which is being spent according to schedule. We need to accelerate that. But I also advocated for another affordable housing bond to be on the upcoming general election ballot. We know that we need to increase our housing stock and to make sure that our housing stock is safe for all families. So that is my commitment, to look at the root causes of what is happening in our community and to continue to fight them.
On a 30-second recap, can you please just explain affordable housing plan? Can you just explain that to me as if I'm a fifth grader?
So we recently did a 10-year study on what we need to make sure that we have adequate housing stock and good housing stock, not just substandard apartments. So we do have that on an upcoming ballot, but we're focusing on people who make 60% and lower than the average median income. We know as these jobs are coming in that landlords are taking advantage and they're raising rents. So we know that as a government, we need to step in and help subsidize some of these apartments and affordable housing.
Thank you very much for your line. Justin Allen, if you are elected mayor, what's the most important challenge facing Greensboro right now, and how do you plan to address it? 2 minutes.
It's certainly economic development, housing, and public safety. But be that, to address your question about whether or not the plan is feasible, it's important to understand good intentions does not make our community safer. Good intentions alone don't make our community more prosperous. You need to actually understand how to solve problems. You cannot demolish a property and the city come in and make repairs to the property. The person who owns the property, that's their property. And so as an elected leader, it's fine to throw out ideas. But when you're serious about moving the community forward, you have to actually understand how it works and how you can actually get the change that you want to see. That's what I've done in my time as a council person on that very same topic. Starting as the chair of the city's Volunteer Minimum Housing Commission, recognizing that too often homes that were in deplorable, sickening condition, that you wouldn't want to see an animal live in, and that our neighbors and children were living in, there were only 2 options. Demolish a home, which creates a gap in the community, a lack of affordable housing, or sit there and look at it being decay in the blighted condition for years on end. And I led the city council in changing that ordinance that provides the city the ability to make repairs directly to those properties so that you can have affordable housing. But, to Mr. Cummings' point, it makes a difference the role that you sit in on the city council, because it determines your ability to set the agenda, it determines your ability to have influence. And so while that ordinance revision has been remarkable, there have been whole developments simply because we enacted the ordinance. There's more affordable housing because landlords had sold the property because they knew that the city could come in and place a lien on the property. We can and should do more, and we will do more when I am mayor. That's actually using our resources to fully utilize that tool and make repairs directly to those properties.
30 seconds, Justin Allen. Mr. Allen, let us know what exactly is the role of the mayor. If someone was like, what exactly do all they encompass, or what all do they govern, or what all do they control? 30 seconds, what is the role of the mayor?
The role of the mayor is that to be a leader of leaders. And so the mayor is a member of the city council. The mayor has 1 vote, like other members of the city council, but the mayor has the ability to help set the agenda. So for example, I as a council member am very focused on public safety. As a city, we should be meeting every single month on violent crime specifically. Likewise, we should be meeting on jobs specifically. Not public safety meaning fire, but specifically on violent crimes. I have been calling now for years that we have monthly meetings on violent crime where we come together and develop solutions. But it is the position of the mayor that sets that agenda, that sets those meetings, and also has the ability to drive change through having a bully pulpit that comes from that position.
Before I go to Mr. Eric Robert, Mark Cummings, Mayor Vaughan, when Mr. Outling was talking, y'all was scribbling. Is there anything that you all would like to say right now?
So it's obvious that even Mr. Outling, sitting on council for 7 years, doesn't know everything that the mayor does. Doesn't realize that it is a full-time job, that you have to be ready to pivot at an instant, to be able to meet with people, to do things on an emergency basis. This is not a part-time job, though technically it is. You have to be willing to focus 100% of your energy every day, every week, to be mayor. Now, I will say we have very effective district reps on our board, and that's because they use their voices also. I build a consensus. I know how to count to 5 to get things done. Other council members do too. Mr. Outling is right. I am 1 of 9 votes. So is he. He has been sitting on that board for 7 years.
Mr. Cummings?
Oh, yes! Come on! They want your vote. I'm telling you, they want your vote. And Mr. Simon here, like, you all see, I need to touch the finger, like, yeah, listen.
right. Mr. Outling has told y'all in the 3 or 4 of these that we have done, that one of the most important functions of the mayor is to set the agenda. But the question has to be, well, whose agenda are you setting? I submit to you that the agenda he's going to be setting is not your agenda. It's going to be the city of Brooks Pierce's agenda. As he told you, he's proud of that law firm because he understands how many conflicts that law firm has brought to this council. For instance, in 2017, we had an opportunity to say...
There are season and there's captain, so we need to call out the difference.
This is important because it shows you whose agenda is really important to Mr. Outling. I submit to you, this would not be under the Outling administration, the city of Greensboro, it would be the city of Brooks Pierce. For example, in 2017, when the city could have saved $650,000 by going with the different management of health care benefits, by going with Cigna, and Mr. Outling caused that process to be held up, and the contract went to a company that is represented by members of his law firm. United Health ended up getting that contract, even though it cost you $650,000 more. That's $1,300,000. That's one. Well, let me finish this. This is important. That's 1,300,000 school lunches. That's 15 police officers. That's 650 teachers that could have got $1,000 bonus. I'm not the moderator, but if you're going to Mr. Outling next, ask him this question: can we have that woman back?
I promise. I'm going to get you in 1 second. In the streets, there's no way I can let my do all that to Mr. Outling and not let him get his face. Wait, they're jumping you.
And I have a feeling I'll have to rebut his rebuttal.
Doing your back. Mr. Outling.
So I'm 38 years old. And so, when I was coming up, people would say it's faking the funk. Folks now say it's cap. And so it's important to actually understand what you're talking about when you seek to be the mayor. And so specifically on that point, I did not vote on the contract for United Healthcare or otherwise. But I will tell you, it was during that time that I led the council making revisions to the minimum housing standards ordinance. It's during that time that before other people started paying attention to it, I led the city in adopting a policy to prohibit racial and other profiling. So while other candidates, specifically Mr. Cummings, was dealing with ethics issues that resulted in his having to resign from the bench, I was working hard to make your community safer, our community safer, and more prosperous. I'll also say, I understand what it means to work hard. My father was a garbage man, a bus driver. My mother was a social worker. What they taught me allowed me to go to college at UNCG, graduate from Duke Law School, and serve you. I work hard every single day for our community. I don't leave meetings early, as the mayor did the other evening, to go to a concert. I'm focused on trying to get on that work session, public safety on violent crime. During the middle of a pandemic, when there's racial unrest, small businesses are suffering, and people are literally losing their lives, I don't post on on Facebook that I'm going to take a vacation and have emojis with a Mai Tai and so, believe me, I work hard. It's a testament to where I am in life, and it's a testament to the results I've gotten for you since I joined the city council in 2015. And you can check the record by going to voteoutling.com, literally a tab that says accomplishments with citations. That's okay.
All right. I'm going to allow a rebuttal from Mayor Nancy Vaughan, and then we're going to just bring for a second, and I'm going to Mr. Wood. We'll be back, Mark, I swear.
I do have to say that I regret. I wanted an issue-oriented campaign. I wanted to address your issues. But when you're mayor, people ask to criticize you for all sorts of things. Or why would you vote for anyone else, right? So, yes, I did go to a concert. We had a 3-hour and 40-minute meeting. I left 15 minutes early. After all of the business items were done, including 5 which Mr. Outling had to recuse himself on, votes that have to do with the Greensboro-Randolph megasite, one of our biggest economic development issues that have come, which he cannot vote on. So how can he be mayor if he can't vote on all the issues? And then let me say, I did take a weekend off, the 4th of July, and it was not during the protests.
All right. No more, I'll be back. I would like to know what concert was it.
It was Sir Elton John.
I'm gonna leave with these 15 minutes early to go see Sir Elton John too. I'm just gonna be honest now. I'm gonna sneak in through the back door.
The only thing I missed were council comments, and that's usually when council members sit around and say what meetings they went to the week before.
But some of us were fighting to get a work session on violent crime, and that's what was missed.
All right. Everybody put that in your minutes and yourself that happened. And then we go on. Mr. Harris Robert.
Well, first, let me ask you if you don't mind, like, giving Justin your mic, because I'd like to keep my hearing before the night is over. On a serious note, I think that one of the main problems in Greensboro is that we don't really have smart leaders. And I think that, we have a lot of issues, whether you talk about crime, disparity, poverty, race relation, none of these issues are new. There's nothing that just popped up. And, this is not Hamilton, this is not a beauty pageant, I'd like for us to actually be real and not have like all the theatrics and all like the fake enthusiasm. We've got some serious issues. And the biggest problem, again, I think that we don't have smart leaders, and you can't solve problems until you truly understand them. And it's not really like the root cause. I mean, talk about crime, for example. It seems like during the riots, increasing crime, we blame all the bars and the restaurants during the pandemic when they were actually all closed. And if you think that, getting more police or like militarizing the police is going to solve the crime, I think you're going to have a big surprise, because it's not. Because the police alone is not going to solve crime, because we don't understand it. So you can give them all of the AKs that you want, it's still not going to solve it. It's going to take the whole village. It's going to take the residents, it's going to take the police, it's going to take the leadership, it's going to take the neighborhoods, it's going to take the pastors, it's going to take everyone.
We're doing well with them, like, because I know Mayor has made it, so let's stop that what we're doing, because Mayor Nancy Vaughan gets a lot. Like, I see the comments, and I wouldn't want to be in that position to save my life, but you four are fighting for that position. And with the three of you, you're saying that Mayor Nancy Vaughan has not done a good enough job. Some people in here may agree with that. My question for you, Mr. Eric Robert, and we can bring it back down the line, what are two things that have been done that you would have done differently for the, I guess, for lack of a word, the advancement or the betterment of Greensboro? When you all have, numerous shots have been taken at the way things are now. You talk about the community and the police. They're doing what? Like, I remember a couple of years ago, Jason King had us all doing the blurred lines, no, not the Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about years before that. When we had a situation where we had the cops come, we wanted to integrate the cops in the community so that we felt like if people in our neighborhood saw the cops more, they wouldn't look at them as targets, but community, part of the same community. And the police were there and they were saying, like, we're going to do that, they're great, blah, blah, blah. I haven't seen much of that. So I ask you three, let me sit this one out here, Mr. Vaughan. What are things that have been done? Well, you can jump into your life.
Yeah, I'm going to reserve the right to maybe jump in.
Okay, say no more. Fair. Eric, we're going to start with you.
Well, are we still talking about crime?
We're talking about whatever. Crime, housing, schools, transportation, homelessness.
Start with crime. Again, like I said it in the last forum, I don't think we understand crime, because none of us are criminologists. And I think that the police, keep in mind that the police are not criminologists either. They follow orders.
Well, what does that mean we don't understand crime?
Well,
we
for
understand
example,
violence.
You understand that there is no such thing as like a bad neighborhood, right? There is no such thing as a bad neighborhood. 70% of violent crime in any particular city comes from 3 to 5% of the streets, right? The violent crime recently, we all know that, you want to talk about nightlife. Nightlife doesn't create crime, but that we know that sometimes it is associated with it, right? And we also know that typically it doesn't happen out of the blue. It happens between the hours of 2 and 2:30 when the bars let out. And yet we don't have any police presence. And when the bars and when the restaurant request police presence, we can get it. Because we know that the police actually, just the blue light is a deterrent enough to actually prevent crime. So our approach is very reactive. And what I would like to see, and for us to get real results, is to actually be proactive. and involve not just the community, but also involve people that know more than any of us, or more than all of us put together. And that includes, some experts.
Mr. Allen?
Sure. For crime and public safety, we have to understand we have to do two things. That's prevention and intervention. Prevention, the city must do a better job and not blame bars and restaurants because they're not the root cause of crime, especially when they're closed, of addressing the root causes, recognizing it's a lagging indicator. When you have families that don't have persons with good jobs, there may not be a spike in crime tomorrow, but there will be a spike in crime over time. And the same with affordable housing. So you actually have to work at those things, doing things like I have advocated for, having a youth jobs guarantee specifically for those teenagers who live in areas of the city where they experience a disproportionate amount of crime. To both help them get off the streets, help them get jobs skills, but also put them in line with their peers in more affluent sides of the city who simply win the birth lottery. We also have to make sure that we're intervening because we need to have officers where they're needed, when they're needed. And so that means making sure that the police budget is appropriate and that the police response times are not what they are right now, which is quite frankly scary. And so that's, as a matter of fact, and it's just facts, it's not making political statements, you need an increase of the police budget, both in terms of pay as well as the size of the budget itself, like I advocated for when I was a member of City Council. But what you do have to understand is that leadership in actually governing, as opposed to campaigning, is about substance, not symbolism. And what we've had far too often in the city, and specifically in the mayor's position, is symbolism without substance. That is sizzle with no steak. And I have fought against those things, and sometimes I've been on the losing side of the vote. But I don't care about being the losing side of the vote when I'm on the right side of the people who elected me to represent them. And so when the city took a symbolic thing and tried to blame it on bars and restaurants, notwithstanding the fact that they were closed, I was the lone voice on the city council that said, no, we have to do the hard work, actually address the root causes, be proactive, and have plans before, not after.
All right. Mr. Mark Cummings?
Thank you for that question, but I'm going to address.
We got 2 minutes.
Thank you, and I'm going to use every one of these 2 minutes because it's time that you learn the truth about what happened to me as a judge. It is about time they stop lying to y'all about what really happened.
Now listen, I have that as a question. I have individual questions for y'all. We'll have 2 minutes totally on that board.
Well, but you can't leave that out there.
Okay.
I'll respect the rules if we're going to be able to address it, but it's time that they stop lying to you. They have said the same things that they said about me, they said about Dr. King. They said about Malcolm X. They said about Mr. Chambers. Every time there is a black leader who will only work for the people, there is always some way to assassinate their character. And then they'll keep you from talking about it. But I got the receipts for that too. It is being uploaded, every allegation that was made. You can see for yourself. You can hear the hearings that went on in my courtroom. Every action I took, I am proud of because justice required it. Now, the difference between Mr. Allen and myself, if you really want to know the truth, is the status quo know that he'll do their bidding. And so whenever he does something unethical, like causing you to lose $650,000 by driving that contract to his firm's clients, that was an ethical violation under our rules. But was there anything there that? No. Because the people he represents are the ones who are in control of these agencies that time and time again shut down black businesses first, shut down or try to kill the character of African American men who are working every day on your behalf. If there's anything I can ask you to do, have the courage to look past these character assassinations. Look at what I have been doing since I came here as an attorney. Look at what I did as a judge. Every day, people knew that when you came into my courtroom, you were going to get an opportunity to be heard, and you were going to be treated with dignity, respect, and I was going to follow the law. I don't apologize to that. And I won't apologize for going to work every day to represent you and not those corporate interests that will try to kill the character of somebody fighting for you and support somebody who is fighting for them.
All right. Next question. Because I do have individual questions.
You said that you might give me.
Did you want to go ahead? Did you want something?
There are a couple of things I want to say.
Okay.
Mr. Outling is talking about a jobs program and youth employment. Oh, I do want to recognize Sharon Hightower, who is here, my council colleague
Please go, Ms. Hightower.
from District 1. But we were in a meeting, the chief and I and a bunch of community leaders were Mrs. Hightower was there in a meeting last year, and he announced this 500 jobs initiative. We were able to hire well over 500 jobs. These were high quality jobs. These were working with Corey and Samet and Ralph Lauren. I don't know why this job program gets under your skin so much. Is it because it was the police chief who brought it out, that he wanted to do something good for the community? When the police chief said he was going to do this jobs initiative, I partnered with him. I picked up the phone and called employers and said, will you guarantee hiring somebody a minimum of 30 hours a week, a minimum of $10 an hour? Will you mentor them? We don't want people to make coffee and make copies, but we want them to learn a business, a trade. Expose them to something they might not normally be exposed to. This is a great jobs program, and we are moving forward with it. There are also jobs that the city will supply, so people know what it's like to work in government. I really don't understand why you can't recognize what a good program we have in place.
Justin, would you like to answer her question or concern?
Yes, certainly. The job of a leader is to not tell you about what's here now. It's to have a vision for the future and a plan to actually execute. My vision is very different, or it builds upon what exists right now. It's not about having a youth internship program where kids from outside the city, like has apparently happened this past year, can get a job. Quite frankly, in the area of the city that I have represented for the past several years, West Greensboro, those kids don't need a city guaranteed job. They have opportunities for internships. The city needs to be intentional about what it's doing. The goal is to help reduce crime, be fair, and give kids that otherwise don't have opportunity jobs, skills. That means that you have to actually have skin in the game as a city, you have to actually have jobs, and you have to have a budget for a program. So it's a youth guarantee specifically for those persons, not everyone and their grandmother, so to speak. And that's certainly not kids that don't even live inside of the city of Greensboro. My vision is bigger. It's not what's here today. It's what we can build tomorrow and what we'll do with Mayoral leadership.
So I have to say, it's obvious that he has never been to any of the job fairs, or you would see the people who were there seeking employment and what type of employers were there.
I would like to say,
I certainly think that I have. I think there's actually council persons who have remarked about children coming from other communities and taking advantage of those internships. And I would also note the city contributed a grand total of $0 to the program last year and is proposing to contribute $60,000 next year. You can't do anything on $60,000 in terms of a program. It costs you at least $40,000 to have an administrator. My vision is grander. It is a several $million program that has an endowment that guarantees that forever the city will be able to provide jobs to children in these neighborhoods. What's here now is good. My vision is better, but it takes leadership to accomplish those things.
We have a really good jobs program. I think you
is
need to
everybody,
come out and see it.
one question.
Well,
Is
just
that
to
what the job
clarify-
program is? Can we get, I thought it was just me, I was I'm getting quiet. I don't know what the job program is. What exactly is the job program that Mr. Outling hates and that you love,
It's basically the same type of program. That's why I'm not sure why it gets under his skin. And the only thing I can think of it was because it was the police chief.
But it is to employ our youth, and it is focused on youth in East Greensboro. Yeah, there might be an occasional white kid that shows up, but it is focused at the people who need it most, and they are high-touch jobs. It's not just all summer. There are people who got a job at Ralph Lauren last summer and have continued to work at Ralph Lauren all year round. I have been to those job fairs. I see the kids that need it. I know when they need help with resumes, transportation. All of that is being looked at a holistic approach. You know, he says $0, but that does not include all of the people that we hired to fill those jobs and all of the work that we have done pro bono in order to pull all of these great employers together.
Mr. Allen, why you don't like job fairs for kids on the east side?
I love it. That's why I'm working hard to take it from good to great, because that's what leaders do. Now, when you hear we're looking at transportation, that politicians speak for, we don't do it now, maybe we'll consider or maybe we'll do it later. The thing is, we need to actually provide transportation, which means you actually have to have a budget because buses require gas. They require people like my father, until he retired last week, to actually drive them. And it takes leadership to actually prioritize to ensure that not just some of the kids are from East Greensboro, that all of the kids are from East Greensboro. Ask the mayor or anyone else, what percentage of participants in that program were from East Greensboro? We don't know, we don't track it, because it's not a requirement. If you don't track it, if you don't make it a goal, you're not going to accomplish it. If you shoot at nothing, you'll get nothing. If you have a vision and you have a plan, and you have someone that has the ability to execute, you can do great things. We're at good, we're moving to great, but it requires leadership and actual vision. It's not a matter of something giving under the skin. It's a matter of working more for our community and not settling for mediocre.
This is the first time, B-Dot, that I've actually heard Mr. Outling talk about any kids over in the east side. I've never even seen them on the east side. If you could, Mr. Outling,
My kids go to school in Warnersville Elementary. I'm there every day. But that's what. That's what.
This is the south side. This is the south side.
No moving from the east to the west dichotomy. I hear you. I hear you. I'm going to right next to us.
All right, Mr. Cummings, go ahead.
He wants to ask now the mayor all these questions. Tell us one street on the east side. Tell us one street that goes through Smith Homes. Tell us one street that goes through Hampton Homes. Tell us one street that abuts English Street. Tell us one that abuts Phillips Avenue. You can't, because you don't go there.
I thought you were saying that I was in the south side.
Give me a second, sir. You talk about leadership. You've been on the council for 8 years. Madam Mayor says it only takes 5 votes to get things done. You keep on talking about what hasn't gotten done and what you will do. How come your leadership didn't cause 5 of the current city council members to follow your lead? You don't have to have the title of mayor to be a leader. You couldn't even convince the people that was on the board now to follow him. Why should you believe that any new board or any other city council will follow him? Everyone knows that his agenda is Brooks Pierce. That's why he can't get people to follow him on the city council. That's why he can't get 5 votes for anything, because he is not a real leader. He is going to carry the water for Brooks Pierce, not you, not the people of Greensboro. I want to be the mayor for everybody. My agenda will be your agenda, will be the city's agenda.
All right, Mr. Lopez, you've been quiet for a minute. Is there anything you'd like to chime in on this? I saw you over there stretching one time and saying stretch your legs. I want to make sure you still with us, Mr. Lopez.
I'm very much with you. I mean, I'm just a little stunned by all the egos on this stage. It's something else, you know. I don't really have anything to add to this. I'd rather watch and let them go at each other.
Okay. I think Mr. Lopez just wanted some team time and stuff. He told me at the beginning, I don't even want your votes. I'm just here because I'm just enjoying myself. Wait. Give me some clarity.
Don't get me wrong. I mean,
I just want the votes now.
I take this very seriously because this is actually not that much fun. You know, I don't enjoy the attention. I don't enjoy the theatrics, and I'm not an actor. So this is not fun. I'm here for the real reason. I'm here to actually accomplish something.
Mr. Outling, you bragged a second ago about the children that you represent on your side, the west side. What can we do to make the west side, and to make the east side and the south side look more like the west side? What do we have to do to, and how can we make Ray Warren look like Adams Farm?
It's acting with intentionality. You know, for example, people may not realize this. For certain areas in our community, they have been privileged to have what's called neighborhood plans. So if you live near the Friendly Center, you have a neighborhood plan so that if someone wants to change how a property is used, the developer, the applicant, has to come before the community. It's not optional. It's not strongly suggested. They have to come before the community before that application can be considered. You don't have that on the east side. And so I have been fighting for that to be a requirement for every neighborhood, not just some neighborhood like those that are on the west. But the reality is, as a council member, and I think it's why at least I'm running for mayor, and I assume it's why others are running for mayor rather than a district position, is that the positions are different. Now, I have accomplished a great deal in my time on the council working with my colleagues. You can go to my website, voteoutling.com, click on a tab that says accomplishments, and see a smattering of them, and I actually give you citations for it so you know that I'm not capping. But the ability to do more comes with being in the position of the mayor. It does make a difference when you're able to guarantee that you're going to have a work session or regular work sessions on violent crime. It makes a difference that when you're looking at a written consent policy, that when you get on the news and talk about the fact that it's a good policy and it makes sense and it'll reduce disparities, black versus white, and stops, it makes a difference when you're saying that from the mayor versus when you said it as I did as a district council person. That's why I'm running for mayor, and I presume that's why others are running for mayor, because it makes a difference the role that you're in. You can accomplish a lot as a council member in a district or as at large, but you have a greater opportunity to do more when you're the mayor. And our city, quite frankly, needs more.
Mayor Nancy Vaughan, I'd like to ask him, the echo in the city is very noticeable. How can we make, Hampton Homes look like Somerville?
That'll be a challenge.
Yes, it will.
because Summerfield doesn't even want apartments right now, they just want our water. I'm not aware, quite frankly, that Mr. Outling has been pushing all these neighborhood plans throughout East Greensboro. I can tell you, I go to a lot of those meetings in East Greensboro. I know all those streets that you just mentioned.
We have a great thing coming up on our ballot, Parks and Recreation. Part of it is $50 million for Noco, Windsor, Chavis Recreation Center. I know that sounds trite, but it is going to be an amazing place for people to meet that will literally put East Greensboro on the map as having the best recreation center in the country. $50 million on the ballot, but it's going to cost us about $85 million. That's only one thing. We've worked with A&T to help them develop the area around them. They have a plan called Resurgent that will get underway. I worked very hard with the House of Prayer to make sure that those apartments have come up. We have great assets in East Greensboro that people can live around, such as Gateway Research Parks. We know that the employment is in East Greensboro. I was asked at the last debate if I would guarantee one job in East Greensboro and one job in West Greensboro. Well, I'm going to tell you, we're going to have more new jobs in East Greensboro than any other part of this city.
How can you guarantee that?
Because they've already announced where they're coming. We know where the growth is. We know where the spin-off business is. We know that for every job they announce, there's another 5. My goal, as I said earlier, is to make sure that our residents are first in line and that we give them the tools. So I worked with the state of North Carolina in this incentive program to make sure that we would have training sites on all of those facilities that would allow our people to upskill at no cost to them.
Mr. Marconi.
I wish for just one moment, both Mayor Vaughan and Mr. Outling will tell the truth about what they've been doing down at the City Council. Here's the truth. There's a minority business, MWBE, that is supposed to guarantee minority participation in contracts that are awarded by the city. This is money that is supposed to go to things like bringing businesses here and encouraging other businesses to incorporate. The goal has been just 15% of each contract should be allocated to minority businesses. Well, in the most recent city council session, which happened 2 days ago, Mr. Outling and Ms. Vaughan both voted to give a $20 million.
No, he was
Give me a second,
recused.
give me a
He
second.
couldn't vote on it.
I'm sorry, he was recused, again, because.
What's recused mean?
It means you can't vote on an item because you have a financial interest in it.
Oh. Wait, for clarity.
I was saying, I want that check.
Wait, Mr. Allen, I promise I'll finish as a roll, but I just need clarity. Hold on, y'all, because the mic's a little low. I just know that earlier, you said that Mr. Allen had to recuse 5 different groups.
Yeah, and probably 100 others.
Again, city of.
I was just mentioning
A
Mr. Allen.
minimum of 100 others,
Would
and
you
I've
take
got
a
the
guess?
receipts.
I guess I started something, Mr. B. Because this is very important. I want you to listen to this. The goal was only 15% of this more than $21 million contract was supposed to be allocated to minority businesses, which includes businesses of people of color and women. 15% was the goal. At the what they agreed upon, what this company is going to get to build an extension to the Liberty Road Phase 3, which is actually going to Randolph County, is less than 1% of $20 million. Less than 1% is going to minority businesses. Less than 1% of your dollars are going to minority businesses. Yet these two want to talk about all the things that they've been doing for the people of East Greensboro. Please show me the money. I don't see it. This is the truth. This is the truth. Until you have somebody who's willing to work on behalf of all people, you're going to keep on being promised one thing with the right hand as they push you out the door with the left. It is an abomination to have $21 million going to a company and less than 1% of it reserved for minorities.
Very good point.
I got to because this is actually a good point, and it's pretty illustrative of the techniques that are employed, by the city just to appease while accomplishing very, very little. The whole WBE program is actually, I've been looking at it, I've been studying it, I've been trying to come up with alternatives. And I think that what we have right now is actually a joke. Because the purpose and the intent is actually a very good intent. But it certainly doesn't trickle down to anybody in the community. And what happened, the project he's talking about is actually not just an abomination. It got condoned by the NWBE office within the city. And there was zero NWBE participation. You know why? Because all we have to do is to show a good faith effort. And do you know what a good faith effort is?
Right.
Is that you don't even have to call an M, you call a W. Right? So not a minority, you call a woman-owned business, and all they have to say is like, no, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I can't take that on. And that's it. That's a good faith effort. And there, you completely eliminate any kind of minority participation.
So where's the money go?
Well, the money goes to the white contractor.
And to Brooks Pierce.
But again, keep in mind that the whole program was supposed to increase the participation of minority and women-owned businesses.
Right.
And this particular case, like it happens very often, there is zero participation, zero accountability, and the NWBE office at the city is only too happy, to acquiesce because there was a good faith effort, which means nothing. It's one phone call and one person telling you they're too busy to take on your job.
All right, at that point, Mr. Outling and Mayor Vaughan, I know you probably want to do a rebuttal, but we're going to do a 5-minute intermission. 5-minute break, everybody needs a restroom, we'll get to a beverage, everybody gets to breathe, okay? We're going to lock this out. We'll breathe, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
I wouldn't go
Because I think he's probably talking about Skip. Because we had a post lately talking about how, when it was funny, I stayed out of it. I almost commented because I was looking for one of his posts and he was, someone was like,
you don't want
no, he doesn't. Well, that's because one of the things he says he wants the money to follow the kids. He's part of that target store.
Yeah, unaccountable.
But it was funny, I found his comment, somebody was like, he was running against Skip, and they're like, no, he's not. I'm like, I'm going to use that. You're not running against Skip, you're running against me, you know?
Well, tell us what you want. He wants a White Island like Summer or Oak Ridge.
Right.
Yeah, I can see the one talking and you over there. Yeah, and I can see that's what it is. God is for that. It's the best thing out of any
I didn't see any questions, just the answers. You gotta remember that. You can hear everything we're saying
Let's take it back to our seats. Let's take it back to our seats. Bring it back to our seats.
Is it okay?
Bring it back to our seats. Is everybody having a good time? Is everybody having a good time? Before we proceed, one thing I would like to do is I would like to acknowledge the Guilford County Black lawyers in the building. If we can, if you're a lawyer or a judge, please stand. Let's acknowledge them. Please stand. Ashley, Larry. Put your hand up. What? If you are a Guilford County judge, please stand and raise your hand. We'll get started in a minute.
I did see our clerk of courts here.
Oh yeah, and if you are a clerk of court and if you're running for office, any other particular office, please stand and raise your hand.
Lisa, where
Let's
are you?
acknowledge you, okay? Now let's do our moderator beat out a round of applause. He's an excellent guy. I'm gonna get out of the way and get out. We'll try to get y'all out in here at 8:20 sharp. 8:20 sharp. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to allow you to do any rebuttals you have, and then I'm going to ask each individual a personal question. When I put out that I was moderating this event, people sent me all types of stuff about y'all. All I'm here is friends. But there have been things that have gone on media-wise that we would just like to get some answers to. You already jumped on yours a little prematurely, but we will double back to that. So first, any rebuttals for the last segment from anybody?
Yeah, I would like to do that.
Okay.
Just be dot.
Yeah.
Apparently I got excited and blurred over
It's okay. It's okay.
It's important to understand what we're talking about in terms of recusals. You recuse yourself or don't vote when it's just a matter of ethics. That means that you remove yourself from an issue. And for me, I have high ethical standards. So I recuse myself when it's appropriate and anyone could even come up with a theory that for some reason I benefit, whether it's personally or otherwise, from a matter. I apply those high ethical standards. And so it's the height of irony to criticize someone for applying high ethical standards that they don't apply to their own conduct. But I let other people speak for their ethical conduct. I recuse myself when it is ethical to do so. I have done it the entirety of my time on the city council. I'll do so for every single day that I continue to serve, recognizing that it's not the recusal, it's what you actually get done with your work on council, and there, my record speaks for itself.
Mr. Rivera, I'll let you go next.
So
Wait, Mr. Rivera, mayor speech. But she got the office, so what can say Mr. Rivera?
So I would like to read North Carolina statute 168-75 called voting. No member shall be excused from voting except upon matters involving the consideration of the member's own financial interest. That is the statute. According to North Carolina statutes, all council members have what is called a duty to vote. You can't decide, I don't want to vote on this, I'm going to take a walk. You can't decide, well, this is a hard decision, I don't think I can make it. You have the duty to vote on everything unless you have a direct financial interest. It's in the statute, read it.
Name check. So I respectfully ask for, we also have a council ethics policy. So for example, our ethics policy has a blackout period, which means you can't use city property to have a campaign event. My ethical standards abides by that policy when others do not. Others have fundraisers in the Greensboro Science Center, which is a city-owned property. So again, I let other people answer for their ethics. My ethics are beyond reproach. I follow the rules as well as the spirit of the rules.
For clarity.
So for clarity, there is nothing in our ethics policy that says we can't rent and pay full price of a city building just like any other taxpayer.
You have to read the
and
policy.
That is, no, I know the policy because I wrote it.
Well, apparently you should reread what you wrote because it has a blackout period, which means you cannot use it at all. You can't use it.
This is my question. Just for clarity, are you comparing renting out a facility to campaign to not voting because of financial ties?
No, what I'm saying is, you apply the ethical standards and you do what is right. And so what is right for me is to recuse myself when it's appropriate. That's my high ethical standard. For other people, apparently they find other things appropriate. So for example, if their ex-husband or boyfriend's company comes before the city council with a matter, they may not disclose and vote. For me, I disclose and I recuse myself. For some people, it has a blackout period, which means you can't rent it out irrespective of whether or not you're doing it for full market value or not. I don't rent out city property because the blackout period in the policy says you can't do it. Now, the thing with city service is you'll get a city attorney to look the other way. You can get a city attorney because it works for you to say that it's okay. But the facts don't lie, the policy doesn't lie. A blackout period means you cannot rent it full stop. And so again, people can account for their own ethical behavior or lack thereof. Mine complies with the highest standards, period. Both in terms of the letter and the spirit.
And the law. It's not high ethical standards. It is the law.
The law doesn't stop me from renting out city property. It's the ethics policy. I follow the ethics policy, period. Full stop.
What I did was ethical. It is allowed, and I paid full price.
Mr. Rivera.
I'd like to start by, I want to talk about ethics, and I'd like to start by saying that you can pretty well get this city attorney to agree with just about anything that's unethical. At the beginning, I said at the beginning that one of the reasons I'm here is because the lines between ethical and legal got blurred. And if you remember, when Mr. Outling got appointed, Zach Matheny gave him his seat. Zach Matheny went away. He's now the president and CEO of a non-profit. And magically, he's not coming back to run for city council because the city attorney said that it was legal, even though, the legislature in Raleigh changed the rules. And it's borderline, it's a little iffy. And to say that somebody who benefits from taxpayers' money, who runs an organization that is fully funded by taxpayers, is going to come and sit on city council with his other 8 buddies and not discuss anything and not attempt to influence behind closed door, I think that it's actually a little naive and a little foolish. So again, I don't think we have the best city attorney. Actually, I would say that we have one of the worst city attorneys right now. I think that he enables the city to get away with a lot of things. But again, it's not because it's legal that it's not, is it ethical? Is it right?
Vamos a hacer so education for us. The city has one attorney. There's one attorney that represents the city.
Yes, and let me just say something.
There's a legal department.
Before, like a few years back, the city attorney used to report to the city manager. Excuse me.
No, no problem.
The city attorney used to report to the city manager. City council changed the rules and had the city attorney report directly to them. What does that tell you? I believe that the city attorney is actually, excuse me, you have your time.
I do.
I believe that the city attorney is actually the last line of defense. All we need is 5 evil people on that council, and all of a sudden, you're going to get a whole different result, and there is no one to protect us, the constituents. And right now, the one person that is supposed to protect us, as the city attorney clearly told me, is like, Mr. Robert, I don't work for you. I don't have to answer to you. I don't have to be held accountable to you. That should be alarming. That should concern you. It's an issue.
Mayor Vaughan, would you like to rebuttal?
No, I don't want to rebut. I just want to get some information out there, correct information.
Thank you.
When we petitioned to have the city attorney report to us, we were only one of 2 cities in the entire state of North Carolina where the attorney didn't report to the city council, which is why we petitioned the legislature to have 2 employees, the city manager and the city attorney. They are only our direct reports. And again, we were only one of 2 cities in the entire state.
But what was the motivation? What was the reason? Just because we won't have the others? Why did that
That's a fair
happen?
question. Was the only reason to make that change because you want to follow in suit with the other counties around, or the other cities around, or?
Just because only because our dealings with prior city attorneys and being able to make them accountable to the city and not to the city manager, we felt it was important that they report to the city council, not the city manager.
Why is that so confusing to you, Mr. Weber?
Because I would like to use your line and explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old, because I really don't get it. Why again, what did you think that it was a good idea?
I do think it is a good idea that we have to make sure that when we are getting legal advice, we are getting correct legal advice, and it is not being filtered through the city manager's office. You know, in some ways, there's a check and balance by having them report directly to the city council and not having the attorney report to the city manager. Because then we don't know that the attorney isn't carrying out what the city manager wants and not what the city council wants. Because we are, in essence, the board of directors, and we set policy, and we need to make sure that that policy is followed through.
All right, individual questions. I have 4 individual questions, and then we'll open it up for a few crowd questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. All right? With that being said, I will start with you, Mr. Montgomery. Now, of course, I had when I asked about the whole resigning as judge, you can definitely speak on that, but something that was important to me as I went through your social media. You were talking a lot in here about the east side and the south side, and both of us being products of that neighborhood. You went on the basis of the platform of you're here to save the south side, or you're here to help save the south side. I would just like to know how. Like, what are your plans that you're going to put in action to, because, again, I grew up in the South Side, and the South Side has looked the same way for the past 30 years.
Thank you so much for that question. Let me address it first by saying, under a Mark Cummings administration, my focus will be on the whole of Greensboro. That is, at essence, what the One Greensboro initiative is. But let's look at it. Let me give you an example of why we need to pay specific attention to the east side of Greensboro that has been abandoned for more than 30 years now. Now, I have twin girls, Addison and Eden. They're 6. I love both of them. I'll give my life for my children. I don't love one more than the other. But if one of them is sick, I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to my sick child to make sure I can get her back to health like my healthy child. The east side of Greensboro is sick right now. I am saying we need to start focusing a little bit more so we can bring it up to where the west side is. It's sick from high crime. It's sick from lack of economic opportunity. It's sick from not having adequate transportation to get individuals from the inside of the city proper to these jobs that are always on the outside, that are always on the periphery. I am saying, let's bring East Side, the South Side up so we can, as one Greensboro, be the best city possible. This is how. The One Greensboro Initiative looks at 4 pillars that we have to right now attack. One is the rise in crime. I've already talked about that. We need to get it under control. It is an abomination every time a mother has to bury her son or daughter. That stops when I am your mayor. 2, we need to make sure that our children are protected. Again, the increase in violence has also had an increase in violence against children. We cannot abide by a city that keeps on allowing 14 and 15-year-olds to be murdered. There are signs, if you go down Dudley Heights right now, I was just over in Dudley Heights, there are Crime Stopper signs on every other flagpole about a young 14-year-old boy named Basil that went to Dudley High School. This young man was killed. We can do better than that. Defending the democracy, making sure that people who are well connected, like Mr. Outling and his ilk, are not the only ones that the city cares about. Making sure that people can be treated fairly, making sure that everybody has opportunities, and lastly, defending this democracy, not defending this democracy, but making sure that there's economic opportunity for all. You better believe I am going to make sure that for every dollar spent in West Greensboro, we're going to have an equal dollar spent on the east side of town.
That's a big promise right there. That's a big promise. Knock it up for that. And then you throw that out there, it'll be a great deal. How realistic, honestly, Mayor Nancy Vaughan, someone who sat in that seat, sitting in that seat, how realistic is it for every dollar spent on the west side of Greensboro to equally be spent on the east side?
Well, it really depends on what you're talking about. Right now, through our budget, there's actually more money spent in East Greensboro, but it's not for the good things. It's because the sewage treatment plant is there, the Coliseum is there, it's because the landfill is there. So when you look at the pie chart on where most of the city dollars are being spent, we've got to look at where they're being spent to improve people's quality of life. One reason why I fought to keep the landfill closed, I was on the original city council that closed the landfill, and I was on the city council that kept it closed. Because we do need to invest more, but we need to be selective, like this recreation center, like the Gateway Research Park, like Core Technologies, an A&T grad who's doing wonderful things in our community, and he was the Southeast Small Businessman of the Year. We have ARP funds coming in. I have been very deliberate about saying that I want these ARP funds to be in the hands of minority-owned and led businesses and nonprofits that wouldn't normally qualify for a chamber loan or a United Way loan. We have great people. I'm sure you all know somebody who is volunteering their time, who has a nonprofit and they're working it out of their house and they're making a huge difference in their community. Well, I made a commitment to lift them up and to give them financial capacity through these ARP loans. Grants, sorry, I didn't mean loans, grants.
I gotta say, there's a difference between grant and loan.
Yes.
There is difference. All right, to you, Mayor Nancy Vaughan, I would like to ask again, individual questions, then I'll come to you after your questions. During the Black Lives Matter boycotts and things of that nature, you took a lot of heat. And realistically, I saw you take a lot of heat on both sides. I saw white constituents saying Mayor Nancy Vaughan didn't move fast enough. How dare her just sit there and tell the police not to do anything while they tear up South Elm Street. Then on the conflicting side, I saw black folks saying, how dare Mayor Nancy Vaughan give us a curfew, telling us that we have to be quiet. We should be out here, our voices should be heard. I would like to ask you, if you can get in the time machine and go back to that time, would you, with them knowing everything that you know now, how it would plan out, would you do anything different?
I'm sure in retrospect there are things you can always do differently. I mean, if you think that you're perfect, well, then this isn't the job for you. I mean, you always look for improvement. That was a really tough time on our community, and it dovetailed with the Marcus Dion Smith
issue, and I know that that was a hot button for everybody in our community. I wanted to be down at the rallies that happened those 2 nights, and quite frankly, I was asked by some community advocates not to come, to sit back and just listen to the message, which I believe I've done. I was also asked by the police not to come because they would be more concerned about my safety than what was going on. I know that we had 2 horrible nights, and that is something I will always regret. But I did institute a curfew that really gave me grief on both sides. But I will say, after that curfew, we had no more public destruction. All of the other main cities in North Carolina did. They were not able to stop. We built relationships. My buddy AJ, I met him when he was out with a bullhorn, and I was really intrigued by everything he had to say, and that he is a future leader in this community. So what he and I did, now it's out, AJ, so we've met, we've had lunch, we've had breakfast, we've talked about problems, try to find out what the common ground is, what can we do better. I reach out to people in this community. I listen to what they say, and I try to put their ideas in motion.
Correct. And I can definitely attest to AJ just being a pioneer in the streets. He was one of the main reasons that I even got involved with this design. He was out there shut down Wendover. I remember they shut down 40 and we were sitting on the highway on 40. They shut down all the roads, protesting. And I felt so powerful in that moment. And AJ, I was about to say, I appreciate you for giving me that opportunity, bro. And I remember when he sat down to talk to me there, Nancy Vaughan, it was something that was conflicting with him because in our community, some people didn't want him to sit down with you because they didn't want you to sort of distract him from being the vocal person that he was. And for him to be able to meet with you to still handle his agenda the way he handles his agenda, and for you to welcome that, and then for you all to be you as like, I think that just was powerful for the city, regardless of how this plays out. I just would like to thank you for that personally.
Thank you.
Mr. Justin Outling. 7, 8 years on city council, right? I would like to know, a lot of black people in this room, what have you done in those 8 years for the betterment or the advancement of the people of color in the city of Greensboro?
So I've served on the city council for a number of years, and I've represented District 3, which is the west side of Greensboro. Many of the things that I hear about in the area I represent are things with regard to which I've done a good job, and I've earned the support of people in District 3. There are other issues with regard to citizens in District 3 don't care about that I've worked hard on, even outside of accolades or TV cameras, that have improved the lives of everyone in Greensboro, especially in East Greensboro. Well before the death of George Floyd, or when other people had awakenings or sought to meet with activists in the community, I led the city in creating a policy that prohibited racial and other bias-based profiling. Understanding as an attorney, I'm sure as other attorneys will tell you, while racial profiling is wrong, it's not necessarily illegal. And so now the racial profiling that people can experience in High Point and other cities are prohibited in Greensboro with a policy that I helped adopt and actually help create the language with regard. The same with regard to housing. In the district I represent, there are very few dilapidated and blighted homes. But literally the first thing I did on the city council, my first week, was work with the city and other leaders creating a minimum housing standards ordinance where the city could actually make repairs directly to property so it doesn't have to be knocked down or in blighted condition for years on end. And what I've also done is recognize that leadership means that you make people upset at some times. You can't be all things to all people, and you can't have situational type positions, and we've had that for far too often.
Right.
We talk about 2020 and the uprising and the like. Some people say when it's heat is on, as the mayor did, I support 8 Can't Wait. I promise that we're going to have a vote on 8 Can't Wait. Reforms to reduce the incidence of police violence. but the vote never happens, action never happens. The same with regard to written consent. A policy, if I can finish, a policy that activists came to the city, and I will tell you, I was skeptical. They said, if you adopt this policy, it will help reduce disparities in terms of stops, black persons versus white persons. And I looked at the information and said, yeah, you're right. I support adopting written consent. And guess what? I continue to support it even after the police association said we don't support it, whereas other council members, including the mayor, flipped their position on it. So respectfully, it's great meeting with people, but you actually need action to change policy and create change. I can meet with each and every one of you from now until forever, but that doesn't actually result in change. You need to meet, be informed, and then act. And we need more action, less meeting, less words.
Well, basically, he took 2 minutes to tell you that he hasn't done anything for the east side of Greensboro. Let's tell the truth about this. It is illegal to racially profile. Not sometimes. All the times it is illegal. That's why I was the one fighting for the 5 African American boys during the protest who had been arrested by police. One of them had their legs run over. It is why I was the one representing the young lady who the city was threatening to take 3 of her kids away. Time after time, when it's talking about action and not just dropping names saying that I met with AJ or met with Dr. Ziddy Namalo and not follow up. It is about real action. I am who the people call when there is something to be done. I am the one who are called by people when they don't know where else to turn, when they need a fighter on their side. Greensboro needs a fighter on their side right now. That's why you need to vote Mark Cummings for mayor.
So I need to rebut. So written consent, one, I didn't flip-flop on anything. No, I did not flip-flop. I looked at what the issues were, and I was able to get 5 votes. I was able to get 5 votes for informed video consent, which is now in the directives. So every time that the police stop somebody and want to do a search, that they have a script they have to say, kind of like the Miranda rights. And it is all on their video, and it is being kept for a minimum of 3 years, and indefinitely if it was involved in a criminal charge. What would you rather see years later? A piece of paper with a signature on it, and you don't know if it was under duress or what is this signature? Or do you want to actually see the confrontation between the officer and the person? Don't you want to see their demeanor? Don't you want to see how they interacted? And if in fact the person actually understood that they had the right to say no, or that they had the right to withdraw? So yeah, I didn't vote for written, I voted for video. And written consent in most cities were done before there were body-worn cameras.
All right.
You realize that we were hog-tying people up until last year.
Yes.
You realize that people sitting at this table and saying this is a good idea. And it took, the tragic death of one individual for us to say, well, maybe we shouldn't be treating them like animals. Let that sink in for a minute.
Right.
2021, we're still hog-tying people. And then, it's then we double down and we make sure, we can even give peace to the family. We take him to court and we make sure that we drag it home. Again, let that sink in. Because that just happened.
All right. All right. One last question, and then we're going to do 3 audience questions. Tell me to wrap it up. 3 audience questions. Monica, Jason, can you all please, if you have a question for the meeting, y'all can show it. Mr. Robert, I got a text message from the other day. Shocked me. Shocked me, Mr. Robert. Says Greensboro mayoral candidate sues mayor, city officials for gun show public records. Are you suing the mayor and the city, Mr. Robert?
Unfortunately. That's thinking for me. I actually went to city council and I plead with them and I begged them and I'm pleased. All I was asking for was public records, which by the very name of public. And you might as well get an act of God because I could not get anything. And whatever I was getting was being doctored, was being not even redacted. Some claim attorney-client privilege when in fact it really wasn't. So bottom line, I made all the effort. I wrote multiple emails. I plead. I went to city council, it's televised, you can check. I'm like, please don't make me do this. Just give me the records. And they did not. So I had no choice but to ask the court to actually help me get those records. It's not so much about the gun show. It's an amendment. We got 27 of them, right? What if tomorrow Mayor Vaughan decides that she doesn't have free speech? And it's not even a hypothetical because she doesn't. Look at what happened to the speakers from the floor. The speakers from the floor went from 2 sessions down to 1. And during the pandemic, they weren't allowed at all. No one could speak. Now let me tell you about Marcus Smith. When the family and when the people wanted to actually talk about Marcus Smith, the council, they decided that we were going to move around, so nobody knew where they would be. And the people couldn't actually get organized and go and actually speak about what was on their mind. So again, let that sink in. Because we're in America, and we have free speech, and we have a lot of liberties, and we got a Bill of Rights, and we got civil rights. So what I'm saying is that the moment that you start dealing with the second, and suppressing the first, where does it stop? Is it the 13th that's next? Is it the 14th? Like she said, you need 5 votes. You need 5 evil or malintended people on this council. And you don't even have the city attorney to protect you anymore. That's all you need. So again, think about that.
All right. We're going to shoot the watch right now. We have to be out of here by 8:30. But that's perfect. But that being said, there are going to be 2 questions. Please, stand up, please. Let me know who your question is addressed to. We have 30 seconds. So, supersonic speed.
My question is addressed to the whole council, and specifically to the West Side, Justin. There are houses on the market that are way over the amount that are supposed to be scaled. I pay rent in LA. I am paying the same amount for my 4-bedroom house here. How is that the same when I know people don't make what I make in LA here? So what did I find out? There's a bunch of houses that are empty, that are being repurposed, and they are used to take rental rents to get your deposits, to fake and fail you. There's a bunch of them. They look similar to what happens to the housing market. I know because I never owned a mortgage company. And what we have are a bunch of people flipping houses upside down, and they're owned by banks that go all the way to Texas. And I did the research, and I called the city, and no one helped me. So my question is, how do we fix that? Because all of the rents in Greensboro has at least 30 houses on the market right now on Zillow that are fake. So why are we allowing that?
30 seconds. Do I want to go first, second, third, fourth? And I'm going to get to that last question. In the back back there? All right. Who's going? Nobody want to take that one?
I would say, to be candid, I'm not sure I understand all the contours of the question, but I understand it to be about affordability. The reality is, we are really experiencing a housing affordability crunch. Even before COVID, even before rents started to really skyrocket, we had over a third of our community paying over a third of their household income on housing alone, which means almost by definition, they cannot make ends meet. And so there are certain things that people ask for the city to do that I'll just be 100% with you. We can't do. The law does not allow us to have rent controls. But there are certain things that we can do and should do. For example, one of the things we should do is have a rental security deposit insurance ordinance. It's an ordinance that essentially requires for property owners that own several different units have to accept insurance in lieu of a large down payment. So for you to get into a rental, you don't have to have first month's rent of say $1,000. You simply pay insurance at $100. That makes it more affordable. We can do these things, but you have to understand the way the rules work, understand the way the law works, have a vision, and be willing to recognize that some people aren't going to be pleased with you when you do.
May I on the same topic?
30 seconds max, Mr. Weber.
Right. Well, you know, the law certainly doesn't allow that, but it certainly also doesn't allow the city to regulate the Second Amendment. And yet, you know, the city attorney wrote a 50-page memo on how to circumvent the law. So I'm pretty sure that with some creative and lateral thinking, we could actually come up with a policy that would address all this.
Final question, answer right here.
Okay, my question is for the whole panel. I use last transit here in Greensboro. If y'all were elected mayor, how would you improve it, and would you personally use it yourself?
Yeah, so the question was about transportation, and the question was, would you actually use it? A little earlier I said that I have started to use it, and I have seen how difficult it is. I've also reached out to a company called Octobus. They're an international company, but they come in and they can look at your transit system and figure out how to do crosstown routes. That is an issue that we have been working on for a long time, and I am committed to following through on this. I think we found a good company that can help us, and we also are going to have a new management company starting next month, I believe.
All right. Y'all put your hands together one time. This is seriously, I want to thank all four of them for your time. We got a little heated tonight, but I feel like we learned a lot about all four of y'all, and I really think it's going to go well moving forward. We all have 20 seconds each to just let them know why they should vote for them in closing. Mark Cummings, I know it's going to be tough, for 20 seconds.
The reason I'm asking for your vote is because we have to imagine a city where everybody works together for the betterment of the city. There was a wonderful movie back in the mid-2000s called Soul Food. And Big Mama at the table said, was trying to teach her family what the power you can bring together. She said that individually, you don't have enough power individually to do things. But when you put those fingers together, and you form one mighty fist, you can take a mighty blow. That is the essence of one Greensboro. Imagine what we can do together. Imagine when we stop being scared to think boldly. Imagine when we really look inside of ourselves and have the courage to get leaders who will work for you and not for a corporate interest.
Thank you, Mr. Mark Cummings. Mark Cummings right there. Now, Mr. Vaughan, we got some memo tonight to go share something, something.
Yeah. So, of course I want your vote. And you can look at my website, www.mayornancyvaughan.com, but this really isn't about me. It's about you. And when you go to vote on the primary, I hope you will vote for the school bonds. School bonds in public schools are so important to our future. We need you to vote on that, and we need you to vote on the $0.25 to help us pay back the school bonds. When you go to the general election, and I hope you'll vote for me again, it's very important that you vote for our bond issues. Affordable housing, that program, that great rec center I told you about earlier, public safety, transportation, those are all things on the ballot that I helped get on the ballot. So again, it's about you. Please invest in those ballot initiatives.
Thank you, Nancy Vaughan. Clap it on time for Nancy Vaughan here. Thank you. Mr. Justin Outling.
Thank you all for attending. I ask for you to focus on substance and not just symbolism. And that requires some work on your part. That requires you to actually look at people's records, look at their websites, look at what they can actually show you they've done, and actually show you their vision for the future, not just where we are, but where we can go. I've been working for your support, canvassing door to door for well over a year across the city. I've been sharing with you my vision for a better Greensboro as well as how we get there. So I hope you take an opportunity to go to voteoutling.com. If I haven't seen you at your doorstep, I hope to see you soon. If there's anything I can do to help you make that decision better informed, please reach out to me there. And again, thank you for attending tonight. It means a lot.
Mr. Justin Outling, thank you very much for your time. And Mr. Eric O'Leary.
Well, I'm still a constituent. I'm still a civilian. And as such, I'm a little offended by just how stupid the most think we all are. And I would say that I don't really have an agenda except that I want to give the government back to the people. I want you all to know what your government is doing on your behalf. I want it to be completely transparent. I would like you to participate as much as you can. We have the technology. We certainly can ask your opinion and stop doing all the shady deals behind closed doors. I want us to stop following trends. I want us to look at Chattanooga and Greensboro. I want us to create the trends. I want other municipalities to look at us and be like, "Damn, what is Greensboro doing?" I think we need to be brave for that. We need to be bold for that. We need to be creative. Obviously, again, all the issues that have been plaguing us, they've been plaguing us for a while. They didn't come up last year. And all the task force in the world, all the same recycled players, all the incestuous relationship will never solve what we have. What we need is creative thinking. We need a fresh perspective and understand that we've got a multiple audience. So vote for me or don't. But if you truly want to change, and not for the better and not for the worse,
then I'm your guy.
Thank y'all for coming out that person tonight.